Payday 3 is right round the corner, and despite my concerns and my millions of questions, I'm so excited to play it. However, for the meantime, we're stuck with Payday 2. This isn't a bad thing by any means. Sure, the servers are completely broken and will most likely not be fixed. Sure, there's still a ton of bugs, glitches, and optimization issues plaguing the game to this day, but that's what gives the game its charm that everybody absolutely adores. Well, maybe not everyone. Now, in Payday 2, there are many ways to play the game. Sneak in and sneak out with no alarms, going guns blazing, use a variety of weapons and skills, and play the game how you want to play it. But for some of us veterans of the game, that's not enough. We want more. Virtual reality is a brilliant but also kind of weird place. It's filled to the brim with breathtaking experiences like Saints and Sinners and Half-Life Alyx. To, whatever the this is. I have spent hours in these experiences, and they have been some of the most immersive and most fun times I've had in gaming. I've played Skyrim to absolute death at this point. I've 100% of the game, I've played through it multiple times, but I still find myself coming back, loading up a shit ton of mods, and playing through it once again as a stealth archer, but in VR. Sure, the VR version has a ton of jank, and it's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but it's still such a fun and unique way of experiencing one of the best RPGs of all time. Just make sure you mod the shit out of it, for the love of God. Now, this same feeling I have for Skyrim also applies to Payday 2, and its VR mode. Yes, Payday 2 has a VR mode for those who are unaware, and it is the best and also the worst way to play Payday 2. What do I mean by this? Well, allow me to explain. Let me start by saying that Payday 2 in VR, for the most part, is so damn fun. Have you ever wanted to live out your fantasy of being a cowboy robbing banks with a big iron on his hip? Well, look no further, because Payday 2 VR can satisfy that itch. Or do you just want to feel like a juggernaut with a minigun that can mow down waves of SWAT, whilst also blowing them to smithereens with an RPG? You can do that too. Hell, you can even akimbo golden spoons and go sicko mode on everything standing in your way. I mentioned earlier that you can use a variety of weapons and skills to play the game however you want to play it. Playing in VR amplifies this experience and feeling massively, because you're there, doing the thing, robbing the bank, looting the vault, shooting those civilians.
So ain't Scoop, those civilians were unarmed.
And sure, even with all of the jank that it has, which I will get to in just a second, it still never fails to fully immerse me in the role of a heister. From shooting pistols to firing rocket launchers. For the next topic, I want to talk about the size and scale of the world you are in. When you're in downtown Washington, looking up at the skyscrapers, you really start to appreciate the scale and detail of each heist. You can really get up close and appreciate the small, intricate details. And honestly, it's rather impressive that this is being able to run in VR, considering how awful the optimization can be on some of the heists in the vanilla version. Granted, if you have a decent rig like myself, it makes it a hell of a lot easier, that's for damn sure. The stealth experience is the one in which I mainly play the VR version for though. Sneaking around in stealth, shotgunning guards into corners, answering the pager with one hand whilst looking over your shoulder with the other adds a whole layer of immersion to the experience. It once again reminds me of sneaking around in Skyrim, stealing gold coins from guards' pockets. That is until all hell breaks loose when I get caught. However, there are lots of limits and flaws to this version of Payday 2, which honestly completely ruin the experience at some times. So yes, I have praised this version to all death, but now I'm gonna dig its own grave and shit on it. Let's start with the movement. Who on earth thought it would be a good idea to set the turn buttons to X and A on the Quest 2 controllers, instead of having the option to use locomotion and smooth turning? This is by far my biggest gripe with VR, as you'll be in a high intense situation, and having to reach and press the buttons instead of naturally turning using the joysticks on your controllers becomes very irritating. Instead, the game opts to put your gadget buttons, your grenade buttons, your equipment, and your fire mode here. What? This is so easily fixable. If I want to use my laser gadget, why not manually switch it on and off if it's on my weapon? Same for the fire mode, why can't I just toggle the fire mode on my weapon? It would certainly add to the immersion factor. And for my grenade and equipment buttons, there are already options on my belt when I look down to grab a medic bag or a grenade. So why take up the slots on the joysticks when you have the options and the solutions right there? Oh, but little guy, can't you just choose between snap turning and smooth turning? No. There isn't even an option. In fact, you can't change any of the controls. Sure, there's mods out there that fix this issue and add these very simple features in, but I'd rather not have my game crash for the 100th time. I just want to play the damn thing, which is quite rich coming from me, as I just said that modding Skyrim VR is the best way to play the game. But yeah, this creates a lot of frustration, especially if you're someone like me who doesn't have too much space in their playing area. For all VR titles, it is crucial to have smooth turning available. It also helps a lot for people who get motion sick easily. Fortunately, I'm not one of those people because I'm a fucking Also, the teleport is just so awkward, and a lack of a jump button means that these kind of jumps here, like on Shadow Raid, are practically impossible to make. Which is annoying, as this jump is one of the few examples of it being one of the most popular jumps to make in the game. Even if you're someone like me who wants to channel their inner Neo and free your mind. The other small complaint in terms of movement is a lack of a crouch button. Yeah, sure, you can physically crouch down and peek round corners in stealth, and that's very cool, and it's a nice little workout on me little quads, but it does get very tiring. However, it is by no means on the same level as Pistol Whip, where you are squatting every 10 seconds. I guess a lot of these small gripes I could have would be the timing in which they released this VR version in. It released in 2018, and at that time, VR was just getting its footing in the market, and there wasn't many options for headsets as we do today. And so I guess the developers couldn't really take into consideration the amount of players playing on certain headsets. And VR players make up a very small population of Steam's player base anyway, so obviously it was going to be a huge priority in the first place for them. But it is just nice that we have a version like this so we can just dick around with it. And I'm sure if they had the time and they wanted to go back and make some of these changes and fix things, they certainly would. But of course their priorities lie with more important projects they got going on, like, I don't know, what is it? It's on the tip of my mind. I can't think of... Ah well, which ultimately comes to my closing statement on Payday 2 VR. I said that this was the best and also the worst way to play Payday 2, and I stand by that statement. Overall, even with the overall jankiness and the bullshit, I absolutely love Payday 2 in VR, but I also despise it. It's a love-hate relationship that I'm working with, and if you have a good enough computer to run it and a VR headset lying around, give it a shot, because you might love it or hate it. Even though I ripped into this version of Payday 2 and praised it simultaneously, I think it's best that I mention that Payday 2 VR is free to play if you own Payday 2, unlike other developers who sold their VR ports as separate titles. So if I'm being honest, a lot of the negatives that I pointed out in this video can be easily forgiven, as Overkill could have easily sold this as a standalone VR title. So to that, I take my hat off to Overkill and Starbreeze, because that's very fucking commendable. I mean, honestly, I've played some shitty VR ports in my time, and this is nowhere near to that level. And just to end the video, I have one final request for Overkill and Starbreeze. Please add VR support to Payday 3. At some point in its lifespan. I would just love to be able to walk around in these environments and appreciate what you've crafted in Unreal Engine. Yeah, sure, VR can be seen as a huge gimmick, but there's something really special and unique about exploring your favourite games in the virtual realm. It breathes new life into the games we play, and it gives a whole new perspective of the love and care that these developers put into their games, from the small details to the big ones. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is where the video is going to end. I'm going to leave you all with a few questions. Have you played Payday 2 in VR? Would you like to see a VR mode in Payday 3? Let's get the discussion going down in the comments. And on that note, I've been Lil VR Gamer Man, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care, and goodbye.